Hey there, it's Gary Parrish. It's Wednesday, February 16th, 2022. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, hey YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. It's right in front of you. It costs you nothing, but it helps us a lot. So knock that out. And while you're here, also, if for whatever reason on this planet you have not subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, please knock that out. It matters. Help us with that. We thank you in advance. All right, dead leg. You were inside the Dunkin' Donuts Center Tuesday night for the biggest game of the night, Villanova, Providence on CBS Sports Network. Jay Wright's Wildcats look composed, great, won 89-84. It looked and sounded terrific on TV, but you were there in person. How terrific of a scene was it last night at Providence?
It was a phenomenal scene. I mean, it was about 22, 23 degrees outside, about an hour and a half before tip, which is when they opened the doors to the general public. I think they let the students in, a lot of them, before that, but because of where I wound up parking my car and then kind of walking around the Dunkin' Donuts Center to get into the media entrance, I walked by what had to be like 4 or 5 different ways to get into the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Every single entrance had a throng of people outside waiting to get in. Not just all college kids, plenty of moms and dads, uncles and aunts, and all those folks into their 40s, 50s, and 60s were outside braving the cold temps. And there was certainly a buzz around downtown Providence. By the way, got in a little bit of Brown Bears basketball practice before it went over to the game. It was good to see them as well. So kind of made the most of the trip there. And then once we were inside, my God, that building was ready to go. I love those environments. It was ready to go. Game tipped at technically like 8:07, 8:08. It was good at 6:30. Good to go. Let's get on this thing. Everyone wore pink for breast cancer awareness, and student section was lively and intoxicated. Shouts to the Providence Pep Band. I actually had a tweet go up this morning when I opened my Twitter app because the Wi-Fi at the dunk, not the most reliable thing, so it finally sent through a solid 14 hours later. Providence Pep Band, though, legit. Good stuff. Not the same old tunes. I really appreciated that. If there happens to be a member of the said Pep Band that listens to this podcast, you guys are really, really good, and that was really cool. I was sitting right in front of them, and Dan O'Neill of The Athletic was sitting next to me. And at one point during the game, we kind of looked at each other and they absolutely broke the fire code. There's no way. There's no way that building was holding fewer than the recommended amount of people to actually keep it safe and in the event of emergency. But it added to the atmosphere. It was, such a tight game the entire way that it made it all the better. I've been to that one and the Texas Gonzaga game have been the 2 games that I've been to this season that really had that real liveliness to it, just that incredible atmosphere. I think actually last night might have been a little bit better than Gonzaga, which was very, very, very good. But yeah, wonderfully played game and good on Villanova. I mean, I kind of wondered if this is how it was going to go in terms of Villanova would be able to withstand what Providence was doing, both from an environment standpoint and obviously Providence being a damn good team. And that's exactly what happened. I can let you lay out the particulars here, and then I'll tell you what I heard from talking to Jay right after one-on-one and then Ed Cooley. But Colin Gillespie has the best game of his career. He goes for a career high, and he came up huge. And early on, it was Justin Moore, and both of those guys are legit. Like Jay Wright told me after, they are seriously injured. Like the past few games here, the day before, the day of the games, it's kind of been a question of they're not going to play. The trainer's going to Jay and the staff and being like, he's not playing. And then Colin Gillespie says, I'm playing. I'm going to play. And they did not look hampered whatsoever during that game last night. So plenty more to touch on this game, but I'll kind of volley it back to you. It was an awesome environment and a really good night for the Big East to have such a well-played game, high scoring into the 80s. Both teams were above 50% for well over half the game from shooting from the field. And I had a great time. It was a really fun time.
It was awesome. On paper, it was supposed to be a great game. You knew no matter what, it would look and sound great. You never know if you'll actually get a nice performance from both teams. And I know Providence didn't play its best. I think Ed Cooley said after the game, sometimes it's just not your night. They were 5 of 23 from 3-point range. They just could not make a shot. On the other side, Villanova, shot nearly 50% from 3. In the first half, it was Justin Moore who was great. In the second half, And really for the game, Colin Gillespie, like you mentioned, career high 33, got the big dagger 3 with like 29 seconds left. We're sitting in studio, and as soon as he got a little bit of space, I'm like, that's it. There was no doubt in my mind he was making that shot, just big time. And we were laughing because if you saw of course you saw, you were there, at the very end, Jared Bynum bangs in a 3, like a second left, to turn an 8-point game into a 5-point game to ruin Providence's record in games decided by 5 or fewer points. It was 9-0 heading into last night, and now at this moment, it's 9-1. By the way, all you got to do now is just move the goalpost a little bit. Providence is still 5-0 in games decided by 4 or fewer points. So you just got to move it a little bit. But you might have saw this on social media. We were in pregame, and it's one of those, like keys to the game type thing. And I said, well, like a key for Villanova will be, don't get in a close game with Providence. If you're going to win this thing, you'd better be up 8, 10, 12, at the under 4, because if you get into a close game with Providence, and here's the quote that killed me, you're not winning that game. And then I went on to explain the record in close games and blah blah blah.
But did that get clipped and shared? I did not see this. Did it get clipped and shared?
Oh, sure it did. And as soon as I said it, we walk off set. I go, you know what? I was sitting there with Renee Montgomery, Brent Stover, Wally Zerbiak. I said, I should have said, I needed one more word. All I had to say was, if you get into a close game with Providence, you're probably not winning that game. And then I'm fine. I learned a long time ago, and I tell people all the time, when it comes to predicting stuff, like publicly, don't speak in absolutes. Don't say there's no way this is going to happen, or there's 100% chance that's going to happen. It's like one of my pet peeves. Like, stop talking in absolutes about things that are going to happen in the future. And so I walked off set, and I was like, I cannot believe I didn't put the word probably in there. I said, this is the way this is going to unfold. Villanova is going to beat Providence in a close game. And so at the end, after the result was decided and it was clear Villanova was going to win and Providence was going to lose, it's an 8-point game. And I'm like, I'm still okay. They're going to lose by 8. And then Bynum for 3 makes it a 5-point game. And I got Villanova fans tagging Old Takes Exposed.
Yeah, the internet very much alive and working in Eastern Pennsylvania.
Yes. They took Indiana's internet, moved it east, and Villanova fans are all over it. But in all seriousness, like, whatever. It was an awesome game. Villanova looked terrific. Colin Gillespie was big time. And now we've got a real Big East race. Like, as you pointed out on an earlier podcast, if Providence wins that game last night, that's basically it. They would have had, I think, a 3-game lead in the Big East standings in the loss column with 4 games left to play. You're not collapsing and losing that, I don't think. Providence would have been on track to win its first Big East regular season title in men's basketball history. Still got a great chance to do it, but that what would have been a 3-game lead in the loss column is now just a 1-game lead in the loss column, and they close, at least based on the current schedule, they've got a game in the last week of the regular season, put it that way, at Villanova. So we could be headed for, and I think this is what the computers would tell you, a co-champion type situation, which would still be Providence's first regular season Big East title, but it wouldn't be outright.
Right. And this is a little bit wonky because Providence is not going to play a full schedule. Now, I asked last night, why exactly was that? Because the Big East made a rule going into the season that you could not play 3 games in a week in back-to-back weeks. You were not allowed to play 6 games in a 14-day span. The Big East made that rule and stuck to that rule. And because Providence hit scheduling issues due to Omicron and the way that the rest of the Big East schedule has now shaken out, no one's on pause anymore, and so they're not going to move other games for other teams to accommodate Providence. They don't have the spots to make up those games. Now, there's been some backlash, I think, within the Big East at Providence. Some of it playful, some of it probably a little mean-spirited, saying like that the Friars are intentionally not wanting to play like the UConn game, and people saying UConn doesn't want to play Providence, et cetera, et cetera. But it's going to lead to a point where Providence is not going to play its full allotment of Big East games. I don't think it's going to make up any of these. Right now, Providence is 11-2 in the league, and it's scheduled to play 17 Big East games overall. So the Big East will go to win percentage, and that's where it actually gets interesting. According to Torvik's projection this morning, this win actually swung it. So I checked it last night. I'm going to have more on this game and Gillespie and the court report, which we'll file later on Wednesday afternoon. But I had it in my file here. Going into the game, the chances of Providence winning the league was 53-47 over Nova. And now it's actually 70-30 Nova in favor. And I think that is taking into account, Providence's fewer games, but obviously they got to go to Nova to close out the regular season. We still could have a situation where they wind up sharing in the loss column, but from a win percentage standpoint, Providence might still have a chance overall. Whatever. This is a huge talking point in the Big East. I wanted to at least bring some context to it. Go ahead.
No, so let me correct myself. If they're going to go by winning percentage and crown a Big East champion, Villanova is in a good spot right now, assuming, of course, they can handle Providence when Providence visits the Pavilion, because Villanova is going to have, I mean, if they both end up as 3 lost Big East teams,
Providence would have a higher win percentage, right? Because they'd have fewer games.
No, Villanova would.
Excuse me. Yes. Yeah.
Villanova would have a higher winning percentage because they played more games. So, last night could have been devastating, dead leg.
It could have been potentially. As for the game, Gillespie just, keeping the ball in that ISO, and then Providence just plays the screen wrong, and he's got him. He's got an opening right there. Of course, he's going to take it. And a note on Gillespie, like amazing player, horrendous quote, and I say that lovingly, and he knows it too. Like he is flat. In fact, talking to Jay Wright last night, got asked, do you ever see real emotion out of Colin? He's like, the only time is seriously like when he hurt his knee last year when it ended his season. Remember, he didn't play in the NCAA tournament, but other than that, no, he is just consistent, and it's what makes him a great player. But Wright also said, and there'll be some of this in the court report, he said the thing that's different about Gillespie, because I asked him, I basically said, Jay, you could put a roster of 12 dudes that played guard for you that are just rock solid, going all the way back, 04, 05, 06 with all those dudes, Randy Foy on, right, and Arch and Brunson, whatever. They just had so many. I said, but if there is a characteristic about Gillespie that makes him different, if it applies, what would it be? And he said, you know what? The thing that is different about Gillespie is I have never had a player who is the embodiment and the spirit of an actual coach. Not just on the floor during games. He's like, we'll be running practice, and like he'll stop practice. And the way that he's talking to the team in a respectful but like kind of dogmatic manner is like, no, man, that's not how this goes. We just ran it right 2 plays ago. Were you not listening? Like this is how it goes. A, B, C, and D. He said, it's incredible. Like I will sometimes just have to kind of step back, watch, let him do his thing, and to have that, in addition to the fact that he could have easily just not played in this game or not played in the game before. But he just said it's just not an option for him. If he thinks that he can go and he can be productive and he's not going to hurt the team, he's going to go. Plenty of players, I think, actually in this spot, mid-February, kind of wait. They'd kind of sit it out. And I asked Jay as well. I said, how long till your guys get healthy? Are you going to be basically trying to keep this thing together with duct tape for the rest of the season? Because he said Gillespie's injury, when he hurt his ankle, it looked worse than Justin's, but Justin's is actually worse than his right now. And we debated not playing them like about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. We thought, okay, can we shut them down? Can we like really force the issue as a staff with a trainer? Can we just not play them for the next 4 or 5 games, let them get healthy so that we can be ready for March? They ultimately decided against it because the injuries maybe weren't quite severe enough. And there was real concern that if you did that and then you got into the first week of March when they ideally would be fully healthy at that point, okay, how long is it going to take us to get into our rhythm? We're going to go into the Garden. And they basically took a gamble, and it's paying off. Last thing I'll say about the game and how it played out. Jay Wright told me, he said, this was not how we thought this was going. We didn't think that we'd be relying on, Justin Moore and Colin Gillespie are their 2 best players, but he didn't think that they'd be relying on Justin Moore largely in the first half, and then Gillespie would go nuts the way he did in the second half. He said that was not the game plan. It was like we thought we'd be going to Caleb Daniels a lot, Jermaine Samuel, see what we got of the other guys. He's like, what you saw here was not what we thought was going to happen. It was not our game plan whatsoever. And it really is a testament, GP, to obviously Villanova and the way they run their program and all that. But I think specifically to, there are just certain players that have this ability to kind of guide a game, take over a game. Gillespie is absolutely one of those dudes. And I don't know if he's the best point guard in college basketball. I just know he's the most reliable. He's the point guard among all of them in the sport that if I'm in a big game against a really good opponent, I'd rather have the ball in his hands than anyone else's. Last night was an example, career high 33. Villanova gets a huge win on the road. And I think ultimately it will be the thing that pushes Nova at least into a really good spot heading into March. I still don't think this is a top 5 title contender. I do think they have some limitations, but it was by the way, this is still our league kind of moment, and a really impressive performance overall at Providence.
It felt like on some level, a program win. Like that's the type of win when you're that type of program, you can go on the road and get. Providence had been playing so well, and they entered the game 21-2, 10-2 in the first 2 quadrants. You know all the numbers. And there aren't many programs that could have gone into that building on Tuesday night and won that game. Because it's not like Providence went away. They were there the whole time. Like they were in it the entire time. And every time it looked like, all right, here they go. Okay, they've cut it to 2. Okay, they've tied it. Okay, here comes it was Gillespie making a shot. It was an offensive rebound and a stick back. It was just Villanova took every punch Providence had, and it was a really impressive performance. I moved Villanova back into the top 10, the top 25 and 1 on Wednesday morning, and Providence is one spot behind the 9th ranked Wildcats at number 10. You mentioned wondering if Villanova is just going to be banged up for the rest of the season, and that's just the way they're going to have to play this thing. Another team you could ask that about, Kentucky. They were in action last night at Thompson Bowling Arena. They lost to Tennessee. We'll get to that next. But first, come on, don't let me down. A word from our sponsors.
Back on Paramount Mountain, where entertainment lives.
Look, amigos, cave paintings of all who live here. This painting really speaks to me.
Peekaboo! Are ya ready, kids? I always do this.
So Providence wasn't the only top 10 team to lose Tuesday night. Kentucky did too. Final score, Tennessee 76, UK 63 inside Thompson Bowling Arena. The big storyline beyond UT's win is that Ty Washington once again had to leave the game before it was over, seemingly bothered by what's been described as an ankle injury. Dead leg. If you're a Kentucky fan, forget the loss, whatever. They still got an incredible resume. They're still in play for maybe a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. If you're a Kentucky fan, are you concerned, starting to get concerned that this is just going to be an issue March?
Maybe potentially. I didn't see a second of this game. This ran up against PC Nova going in the 8-10 window. Kentucky went 9-11. Then I was doing interviews and all that after, so I didn't see any of this. But yeah, obviously that would be a concern. And I checked in on Wednesday morning just to see how the game went, and Tennessee wins with ease, which is a really good sign for that team. And Kennedy Chandler apparently had a really good game. But Ty Washington and his health, I do think it's about as important as any other player. Oscar Tshiebwe is right in the mix, front runner national player of the year. If you want to say it's now Johnny Davis after what Johnny Davis did against Indiana, I'm absolutely willing to listen to that, because in many ways what Johnny Davis does, and I was talking with our buddy Rob Dostler about this the other day, Johnny Davis is more of a traditional MVP candidate. His value, I think, overall probably supersedes Oscar Tshiebwe's immense value, but Johnny Davis has more of the characteristics of what we consider an MVP. Now, college basketball doesn't have MVP. It's National Player of the Year, usually best player on one of the best teams in the country, and that's still Oscar Tshiebwe. He had 13 points, 15 boards, continues to put up really good numbers, but I think that Ty Washington, if Tshiebwe is 1A in terms of importance, Ty is 1B. I think it is that close, and I think there's something to be said. It kind of gets back to what we just talked about with Gillespie. What objective are you trying to reach here? If Ty Washington's health is paramount to Kentucky having viability once we get into March in the NCAA tournament, and we think this is a national championship contender, then did he need to play last night on the road? I think that's a fair question to ask. Only Kentucky, its trainers, coaching staff, they can truthfully answer whether that was worth that risk. But I'm looking at the box score. I mean, he played 12 minutes, shot 1 of 2 from the field. They were both 3-pointers, had 3 turnovers, 3 assists, and that's it. And then he said he had to leave with another injury tweak there. So I don't know. Again, it's all about what he feels he can do, should do. Kentucky has Alabama this Saturday. That's a home game. Then another home game against LSU. But you got to kind of look bigger picture here. Kentucky can win without Ty in the short term. Obviously, in the bigger picture, you want him available when we get to March there. So something to at least keep an eye on. But I do want to at least give Tennessee their shine. You can speak more to what actually happened in the game because I didn't see it. But for Tennessee to get that win, now 10th at KenPom as we speak this morning, the Vols have won 5 in a row and have won 8 of their past 9. The only loss by 1 point in that really wretched of a watch at Texas SEC Big 12 Challenge to end January. So a little bit quietly here, Rick Barnes has actually got this team not just playing well, but really tracking toward a respectable seed. Vols' losses have come against Villanova, Texas Tech and OT, Alabama on the road, LSU on the road, Kentucky on the road, Texas on the road. Doesn't have a home loss yet this season, and they are now shaping more into what you said they would be in the preseason. Potentially top 2 team in the SEC. They look the part there, and I think that's a really cool, fun, interesting thing. And because they got that much talent, just keep an eye on them. I don't want to say they're under the radar, Parrish, because that's not the case, but they just haven't received as much attention, pub, and love. Maybe beating Kentucky changes that. They'll go on the road this weekend, will Tennessee, and play at Arkansas.
Yeah, I think winning last night in a game against Kentucky does change that. It makes not me, like I take a close look at this stuff every day, but it makes a casual college basketball fan go, oh, so what's Tennessee been up to? Oh, wow, 8-1 in the past 9, lone loss in that stretch, a 1-point loss at Texas. They might be pretty good. And I know you didn't see it because you were at Providence. I don't know how often you peek at the comments here, but I don't want you to be misled by one. Somebody in the comments said that Tennessee got lucky on Tuesday night.
I'm sorry.
That's not
they won by 13.
Yeah. No, and they were up by 20. They didn't get lucky. They beat their brains in. Like they ended the game in the first half. The Kentucky strength coach, you don't see this every day. Got a technical foul.
I did see that kind of stray across my timeline on Twitter. I didn't see the video, but apparently he was yapping back at somebody. But yeah, I saw it.
So he gets a technical foul, and then Tennessee goes on a 17-1 run immediately to take control of the game. It basically ended right there. Kennedy Chandler, my little homie from Memphis, he got 17 points, 6 assists. He was 3 of 5 from 3. Even John Calipari said afterwards, like, they punked us. Like they punched us and we didn't punch back, and we got to, own it. Don't make excuses for it. Just own it. Like, hey, we got beat and punked, and we've got to be better than that. And I'm certain, like, I don't have any long-term concerns about Kentucky as a basketball team other than the health of the roster, because that's a real thing. It appears like Ty has been banged up for a while now, just bothered by one thing or another. And John Calipari said last night after the game that he wishes he would not have played him. He said, quote, if I had it to do over, I would not play Ty. I shouldn't have played him. I asked him twice, why don't you just step back? He said, I can do this. Then I was not going to play him in the second half, and I did. I called him in, and he said, I can do it. I should have just gone with my gut. And what's interesting about that is when I was on sideline for the Kentucky-Auburn game earlier this season when he got hurt, if you remember my initial report, because I was standing right next to the bench, he was with the training staff right after he came out of that game, and he was telling them, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. And so my initial report was Ty Washington is being checked on by the training staff, but he is indicating to them that he's okay. And then, of course, he never came back in. And I think that starts to speak to who this guy is. Like, he's just going to tell you he could play because he wants to try to play. And then it becomes, the responsibility of the training staff, the coaching staff to make the right decision. I think they did clearly at Auburn by not allowing him to return to the game. By John Calipari's own admission last night, they didn't make the right call here. And when he was on the court for like 13 minutes before he left for good, he was not good. He had 4 points, 3 turnovers. He looked like an unhealthy player trying to play through something he probably shouldn't be trying to play through. And Severe Wheeler, by the way, also left the game very late, holding his wrist at this moment. No idea if it's something that'll even show up in the next game, but there's so much of basketball, not just college basketball, but in the NBA as well. Championships and people who advance, it's dictated by injuries. Like the NBA playoffs every year has wild injuries that create opportunities for some teams and ruin opportunities for others. And the same is true in college basketball. Like, what would Villanova have been last season if Colin Gillespie doesn't suffer a season-ending knee injury? Oh, by the way, like, is Colin Gillespie even back in school this season if he didn't suffer a season-ending knee injury last season? Like, would that whole thing have gone down differently last night? Injuries are obviously like a real big deal in all sports. And if you are Kentucky right now and you've been dealing with a banged up Ty Washington for a little while now, I think you do start to get concerned. Like, is he ever going to be 100% healthy again this season so that we can go where our talent and ability and resume suggests we're capable of going?
It's a fair point and certainly something to keep an eye on there. It was a pretty noisy Tuesday. I know there's a few other things we got to get to. What guide the ship here, buddy? I mean, you were in studio for CBS Sports Network. Obviously saw all this as it was kind of going down. I got a few scores that kind of peek out to me, but I'll save my thoughts there. What else to you pops most that's most intriguing what we saw there on Tuesday?
Yeah, some other stuff on Tuesday night. Before we get to it, allow me to remind you that if you're watching on YouTube, live or otherwise, please go smash that like button. You've got consent. You have consent. We've given you consent. Now it's time to smash. Knock that out. It helps us a lot. Some other sort of bullet point big developments from Tuesday night. Duke got a stick back dunk from Mark Williams. You probably saw this on Twitter in the final second to edge Wake Forest, 74-72. Mike Krzyzewski was not feeling well, did not coach the second half, but did address the team after the game, which means he remained at the arena throughout the game. You mentioned this when Johnny Davis destroyed the internet at Indiana, got 30 points and 12 rebounds. Wisconsin won 74-69 at Assembly Hall. Michigan State lost at Penn State. Mm-hmm. It was just the third time in the past 10 years that Penn State has beaten Michigan State. Michigan State's now 4-5 in its past 9 games. And then just one day after entering the AP Top 25, Wyoming took a quad 3 loss at New Mexico. Yuck.
That is yuck. You hate to see that, particularly with teams that seldom even get into the top 25 when they take a loss like that. That's a seed line knock right there. Undeniably. Sorry, Wyoming. It is, but you're still safely in the field. I want to hit on all those. And yes, I saw in the comments I was getting flack for my Memphis take. They did win on the road at Cincinnati, so we can get to that in a sec too. Okay. First of all, with the Duke Wake thing, I don't know if you saw this because I posted it right before we podcasted, but I put a video on my Twitter feed where it's got Mark Williams. His first tap is totally legal. It's outside the cylinder. Now, there's a second touch when he goes to dunk where his hand touches the ball as it's over the cylinder and he dunks it in. The bucket counted. I think that's legal, but as I tweeted, I'm not 100% on the rule interpretation there. I think if you make contact with the ball and then as you're kind of going through and it's outside the cylinder and you are completing the motion or completing the gather, I think is the term that you often see shown in the real rule book. I think that's allowed. He clearly, on the view that I tweeted out, he clearly is touching the ball as it's above the cylinder. It involves Duke. Everyone's going to go nuts over this, obviously, but it was intriguing. I had someone tweet at me, Andrew Hoke, I'll give you a shout here. He says, Article 2D, a player may have a hand legally in contact with the ball when this contact continues after the ball enters the cylinder or when during such an action the player touches or grabs the basket. So I think the bucket rightfully counted, but I didn't see this in real time. And then had the video sent to me on Wednesday morning. It was intriguing. So that's one story. The other thing is apparently Wake Forest. I did not see this one. I saw the video after. I don't know who shot it, but someone literally almost made like an 85-footer, but it wouldn't have counted because he didn't get off in time, which would have been like one of the all-time buzzer beaters. And then Coach K leaves the game midway through the game, I guess at half. Hopefully he's good. Like to start a game and feel like you're good to go, and then to not return. Obviously a little concerning, but it seems like all is okay, and hopefully he'll be able to keep going with that. Wisconsin, Indiana, man, Johnny Davis is, I can't see any way he's not a first team All-American at this point. Like he's just too reliable. I know it's not the most shocking news in the world, but we got a lot of players that are in contention to be a first team All-American, GP, and man, oh man, he just a huge performance there. Indiana's kind of going through it at the moment. Hoosiers fans, 4 straight losses, 16-9, now sub 500 in the Big Ten. That's tough. I don't know. At Ohio State next and home to Maryland. Indiana's going to the NCAA tournament, right? Like that's going to happen, GP? That's going to happen.
I think Indiana will be in the NCAA tournament. You might have heard, but they've got to put 68 teams in this thing. But obviously trending the wrong direction.
Yeah,
it's wild. You got to put 68 teams in. But they're obviously not headed in the right direction right now. The remaining schedule is 2 home games, 3 road games. You've got a road at Purdue and a road at Ohio State. That's obviously not simple. But like Indiana fans are at least having fun with it with me now. They're like, GP, I can't. I'd love to listen to the podcast, but as you know, we're having internet problems here in the state.
Drive over the border to Kentucky to even send this tweet. Yeah, I think that's funny. But Trace Jackson Davis had
like if you remember all.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he went big. He was terrific. And it looked like Indiana, like, it's such a jumbled in studio and all these highlights. It feels like a jumbled mess, and I don't have the notes right in front of me. But if I remember correctly, like Indiana was up in the final couple of minutes, and it was like, okay, they're fine. And then Johnny Davis becomes Johnny Davis. Next, you just took a 74-69 loss. It was, in a row. Yes, can still make the NCAA tournament, but better start playing better, or you'll never have internet again.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of getting the full kind of coaching. Mike Woodson's getting the full experience here in year one. You know, the highs, the lows, and everything in between there. And we will see. But yeah, a good little battle there between Johnny and Trace, both getting 30 apiece. Other game you hit on. Oh yeah, Michigan State. Let me
stop you for a second and ask you a question.
Okay.
Does it appear like I have Indiana internet throughout this entire podcast?
100%, dude. I mean, if you want to just address the elephant in the room, I mean, the internet's going out in New York City right now.
I can't hear a word you're saying on this podcast. I don't have any idea I have no idea what you've said.
Yes, you are having internet. I mean, you're having some internet issues. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's absolutely happening right now. The universe and its will is bending back upon you. Yes. This is incredible. Absolutely incredible what's happening. Yes. You're blurry. You're fuzzy. You're coming in and out. I'll take the command here for a second. Can you hear me right now? Okay.
It's like Johnny Davis played St. John's last night. I feel like Johnny Davis played St. John's last night. And now now my internet's suffering because of it here in New York City.
Well, we can hear you. This is just it's amazing to me. But yes, you've been pushing through it. You might need to make a call to the hotel, to the front desk there, see what's going on. You also mentioned that Michigan State lost at Penn State. I did see that Tom Izzo did not make any of his players available to the post-game media session, which basically never happens. So, you know, I don't know what that's an indication of, other than Tom Izzo was extremely pissed and didn't want his players talking to the media. Obviously, we don't want to make a habit of that ever. At least make 1 or 2 guys available after a loss here. But they lose, and now Michigan State's also another Big Ten team like Indiana, which is on a swoon, lost 3 of his past 4. At one point, this was a 14-2 team. Now it's 18-7. I've been a little skeptical. I think I mentioned this either on Sunday or late last week. I was a little skeptical of Michigan State overall. They're going to get to the tournament, but not a team that you can put a whole hell of a lot of stock into. So clearly notable, and Mike Shrewsbury gets a nice win there as well. I'll get to Memphis in just a second, but I'll also note Texas won at Oklahoma. Oklahoma, man, they're 14-12. Like, they're yet another team. You got to put 68 teams in this thing, but they got to start winning these games, man. Like, they have nothing but good losses. Let me bring up their page right now. Oklahoma, are all of their losses quad 1? Oklahoma Sooners. No, 3-9 in quad 1, 4-2 in quad 2. Oh, they do have a quad 3 loss. Oklahoma cannot be in the field as of right now, in my opinion. That's a little tough. Can you hear me? Okay, good times. Well, I'm going to keep rolling on this then.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
This is what I hear. This is what I hear while you're talking. Texas, Oklahoma, quad 1, Micah Shrewsbury, Tom Izzo, don't know what that was about. Quad 2. That's all I know. I don't hear anything other than that.
Oh my gosh. Try it. Nana, text him on the side. See if he can log out and log back in. Like, just text him on the side. Dude, try and log back out and log back in. I will continue talking because there's still more I got to talk about here. Just log back out and log back in and see if you can get this back to where you need it to be.
You just handle this. I'm gonna go get some lunch.
Okay.
And just remember to let me give you the Baylor player. His name's Jake Lindsey. So make sure to shout out Jake Lindsey and tell people to smash the like button.
Oh God, incredible. That's just amazing. If you want to call it, I can steer the ship home here. Memphis did win 81-74 against Cincinnati. They are now not just in the NCAA tournament conversation. They are a viable bubble team. I don't think I would put Memphis in the field as of this morning. They're close. Another road win is humongous. Obviously, they are close. I don't know if I'd quite go there. They're 4-2 in quad 1, 2-4 in quad 2. They've got 2 quad 3 losses overall. They're at 40th in the net. So they're not. If they're not in, they're knocking on the door. They're the first or second team out. And Penny Hardaway has turned this whole thing around. So I got to give some credit because I did not think Memphis would go on the road and beat Cincy. I did not think that would happen, but it's been able to, and it goes and gets the win. Did you hop out and hop back in? Are we good?
It sounds better.
Amazing. Just incredible.
Not sure how long it'll last, but we're good right now. I feel like Johnny Davis played at Manhattan College last night and just ripped the internet out of his place.
But that's what makes the pod incredible, man. That was really, really, really something there. I think we probably touched on Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas, Oklahoma, Nova Providence. Johnny Davis goes nuts. Memphis gets a good road win. Michigan State loses at Penn State. Tom Izzo doesn't allow the players to talk to the media. Iowa State, by the way, was kind of hungry for a win. It got one on the road against TCU. Good on the Cyclones to at least stop bailing water every single game. And Florida lost, but we're now like in thick bubble season. Florida lost by 1 at A&M. Gators clearly their season can kind of go either way there. Certainly something to note there. And I think that's probably it for the Tuesday night games. Before I give a heads up on Wednesday and Thursday, anything else from Tuesday, or was there even anything on Monday? Monday was blah. Monday was whatever.
Kansas beat Oklahoma State. Kansas State got Kansas State's like on the bubble now.
I can't
which is kind of incredible. Are you being serious?
No.
What a nightmare. What a nightmare. You asked me if there's anything else. I have no idea what you've been talking about. I mean, there might be something else, but you might have also talked about it.
Listen, tee up the softball here. Any thoughts on Memphis? I spend a lot of it talking Memphis because they at least deserved a little bit of recognition here for what they were able to do. They go on the road at Cincinnati. They win 81-74. In the process, get to 15-8. They've won 6 in a row. They're 9-4 in the American. And I said, I don't think I'd put them in. Like, I haven't put pen to paper and put 68 teams in this thing as of February 16th. I feel like they're probably still the first or second, third team out, but they're a viable bubble team at this point. It's not arguable. They got another good road win. Cincinnati's not a tournament team, but it's another good road win. And I think at this point, Penny Hardaway, he deserves to be respected for what he's been able to do here. And so that's what we're here to do.
Stop disrespecting me, bro.
They've won 6 in a row. They're now 6-6 in the first 2 quadrants. They do have 2 quadrant 3 losses, but 6-6 in the first 2 quadrants. Even with those quadrant 3 losses, most bracketologists are going to have them on the right side of the bubble right now. I talked to Jerry Palm yesterday on my radio show. He said if Memphis were to win at Cincinnati, he would probably have them on the right side of the bubble when he updates on Thursday. I believe I'll just keep it simple. I believe most people who put brackets together as of this morning or when they update next will have Memphis on the right side of the bubble. There's a lot of reasons why they're better. One reason is because Penny has settled into playing a shorter rotation. And another reason, I think it's addition by subtraction. I think they're better without Amani Bates. And I don't say that to be mean, but there's a lot of efficiency numbers with Amani Bates, without Amani Bates, that suggest they're just a better basketball team with them. And plus, him not being there, by extension, shortens the rotation. So they're a good basketball team right now. I do wonder, because they got back on everybody's radar by going and winning at Houston. Like I do wonder how, like, Jerry Palm's got Houston as a 7 seed right now, and when you ask him why. Because it's a radio interview and that's what you do. He'll say they haven't beaten anybody. They have 0 quadrant 1 wins. Houston does right now. 0 quadrant 1 wins. And they kept moving up the polls after they lost Marcus Sasser because they kept winning. So people just kept moving up and the computer number stayed strong. But their first 9 games without Marcus Sasser, they played 0 top 80 KenPom teams. So they just, they beat some bad teams badly, but they didn't beat anybody. Then they go play at SMU, borderline tournament team, lose. Host Memphis, borderline NCAA tournament team, lose. So they're 0-2 without Marcus Sasser against quality basketball teams. I don't think that means Houston is not any good because Kelvin Sampson's still the coach. I'm assuming Houston's going to be good. But I guess I'm not sure the current computer numbers and the current AP ranking match up real well with what that Houston team might be. We'll see.
We shall see. On Wednesday night, here's your heads up on it. Baylor at Texas Tech. That's the biggest game of the evening. Just 2 quality teams, and we'll see what Baylor looks like and who's available to play for the Bears there. Purdue plays at Northwestern. Normally I wouldn't even mention this, but let's just see what Purdue team shows up. Like if Purdue, coming off the skin of their teeth win against Maryland at home, like, can you go into Northwestern and win by 15? I don't know. I want. That's also a 9:00 tip. Earlier in that, Illinois got a slippery one against Rutgers. Rutgers, obviously, among the most intriguing bubble resumes out there. Beating Illinois at home makes it all the more interesting. Seton Hall at UConn is a CBS Sports Network game. GP will be in studio all evening. That's an 8:30 tip. Seton Hall at UConn. Dan Hurley versus Kevin Willard. Always intriguing. And those are probably your 4 biggest, most notable games of Wednesday. And then Thursday night, we'll obviously talk to you again on Friday morning. Michigan at Iowa. Michigan kind of, their resume had a little bit of a death rattle, and then they were just not competitive against Ohio State. So if they have any shot, they gotta win that game at Iowa, which is, we haven't talked a ton about the Hawkeyes yet. Perhaps we will on on Friday morning. If they can get a win, they'll be 18-7 at that point. And Fran's done a pretty good job overall. And then a huge Thursday night game, San Francisco at St. Mary's in the WCC. Those are both top 30 KenPom teams. And that's a really, really quality game, though. So those are the 2 biggest ones on Thursday night before we talk again on Friday morning. That's pretty much all I got, GP. I mean, I got to do HQ here. I got to finish up the court report. Your internet seems to be steady at this point. It got a little. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think it had reached a point here where you basically had to address it, because we've had some incredible moments over the years on this podcast, but it's when things go awry and they go astray that I think we rise to our best and most ridiculous. And thank you for at least asking me if I could see or hear you, because everyone knew what was going on, and thankfully we fixed it.
Well, like, I guess next time I should ask immediately so we don't spend 20 minutes like that. But the reason I was wondering, like, maybe it's just something on my end that's not impacting the actual podcast, is because every time I asked you something, you responded like immediately. So I was like, okay, maybe he can hear me fine.
I could always hear you. That's the thing, is almost always I could hear you. So for everyone listening to this podcast after it's gone into the feed and are like, what are these guys doing on video? Like, what is this experience? First of all, you need to be involved in the experience. Okay. Get in here. Even if you don't watch, go ahead and just subscribe to the video if you could. Our numbers have been really, really, really good in the past month or so as people have gotten more and more involved. So thank you to everyone. If you are just coming around now, like, we'd love to have you here, but you've missed out on some just absurdities here. I've already forgotten the Baylor's player's name, by the way. So you gave me the Baylor player. If you had actually bailed out here, let's be honest, I wasn't doing it anyway. But you're clear to go. You know, you're clear to land this ship.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Jake Lindsay, legend. Shouts to Larnell. And thank you guys once again for listening. I Own College Basketball Podcast in the middle of the dumbest pandemic of my lifetime. Do you know that pandemic shut down my favorite lunch spot right downstairs? I walk there every day and get lunch. Not there. Never coming back. I never see one like this.
Yeah. Nowhere.
Never see one like this, dead leg. Woo! If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a nice review on Apple Podcasts. I mean that, for real.
Mm-hmm.
Type some nice words. There's more of us than there are of them. Don't let them trick you, make you feel bad. There's more of us than there are of them. If you haven't smashed the like button yet, knock that out. Brandon Davies would do it. He risked a trip to the Final Four. He didn't care.
This is all coming off, by the way. Next time you see me, haircut tomorrow. So significant choppage heading my way. We're overdue. It's time.
I was trying to talk about Brandon Davies.
I know. Sorry. I just, you want to keep going?
Give me a few more minutes to talk about Brandon Davies.
We're at 47 minutes right now. This has been breezy. This has been amazing.
I could stretch I can get us to 52 just focusing strictly on Brandon Davies and his desire to smash. We'll talk to you again on Friday. Till then, take care.